Welcome, everyone. It's really amazing to see so many people with us tonight. And it means a lot to us, so thank you for coming. Now, as you know, on February 6th, in the middle of winter, at 4:17 a.m., when people were in deep sleep, an earthquake of 7.8 magnitude hit southeast Turkey and northern Syria. The tremor was so powerful that it was felt by machines as far away as Greenland. And hours later, a second earthquake struck, this time with a 7.5 magnitude. Thousands of buildings, including whole apartment blocks, were flattened. Roads were completely ripped up, and many thousands of people were trapped under piles of concrete. And in just a matter of seconds, actually, people have lost everything. The suffering was and is still immense. Now, one of the images that in my mind encapsulates the scale of the tragedy is perhaps this one that you see behind me. For those of you who don't read Turkish or might not be familiar with this custom, in Turkey we give names to our apartment blocks, so they don't only have numbers, they have names. And this one happens to be called Kahraman, which means hero, which means invincible, unbeatable. When the earthquake hit, the apartment Kahraman hero was flattened completely. Later on, when rescue teams came, and you must bear in mind, we must remember that the first hours, the first days, there was so much chaos, no properly coordinated, organized official efforts. In that moment, the rescue teams had to write 2 words on those buildings where they saw no hope of life whatsoever. They wrote these 2 words, ses yok, which means no sound, which means there's no sign of life coming from under the rubble. It's a sign, it's a symbol of hopelessness. And it means that if you see those 2 words, you need to rush to the next building, next collapsed building, and try to see if you can save anyone there. And this image stayed with me for a very long time. Of course, as a novelist, I love words, but seeing these 2 words was very painful. As storytellers, we are not only drawn to stories, we're also drawn to silences. We try to understand them. And we do know that sometimes there is actually sound, but people don't hear it. So maybe the question is, how can we become better at hearing each other's struggles and suffering and stories? How can we become better listeners in life? And how can we amplify unheard voices and untold stories? This is our starting point tonight. We believe that silences keep us apart, but stories bring us together. The human mind is very interesting in that sense. It doesn't really register the difference between 25,000 dead, or 50,000 dead, or 75,000 dead. It's just numbers. And if it stays like that, it generates a kind of numbness. We don't really absorb the gravity of the situation by solely looking at numbers. But if we do know the stories behind each statistic, then we can relate to others, not only intellectually, but in our hearts as well. Today, we have an amazing lineup of storytellers. As a group, we will be sharing with you stories. Sometimes we will be reading from our own, excerpts of our own work, but we will also be sharing testimonials from earthquake survivors. I want to say just a few words about how we collected these testimonials, and we have hundreds and hundreds of them, but of course we will be only able to share just a few with you tonight. These testimonials were gathered in Turkey and in Syria by the amazing Tuzla teams working tirelessly on the ground. As you know, this is an amazing charity and a grassroots movement dedicated to helping the most vulnerable without any prejudice or any discrimination or bias based on ethnicity or religion or race or gender or anything. And I find this very important because the earthquake has demolished so many lives and dreams, but it also needs to be understood, in my opinion, that women and children and minorities of various backgrounds, and especially the poor, who do not have the means to go anywhere else, have been carrying the burden of the catastrophe disproportionately. So it's very important to hear their voices, and these are the stories that often get untold. Choose Love have been working in this region since 2015. They collaborate with various partners like Ahbap in Turkey or White Helmets in Syria. And thanks to this, because they know the ground so well, when the earthquake happened, they were able to spring into action very fast. And literally within a matter of hours, they were able to start working. And so they have been funding search and rescue efforts, emergency shelters, food, medical care, antibiotics, and also providing clean water, washing facilities, and period products. So the witness accounts that we will be reading came directly from the people of the region. Understandably, many of the readings are emotionally very heavy and heartbreaking, but I sincerely believe this is a gathering of hope and inspiration and solidarity, and I want to add global sisterhood as well. We believe that literature and arts can make a difference and can make a positive contribution in empowering the disempowered, making the invisible a little bit more visible, and bringing the periphery, especially those who have been marginalized or hurt or left out and left behind, bringing them to the center of our attention. Lastly, if I may add this, these are very strange times, and we're constantly being told that we can only fit inside one box of identity. We're constantly being told that there's an us and there's a them. And we're also being told that we will be better off if we're surrounded by saints. But I think here in London especially, we do appreciate that the city is so diverse. We do not take diversity for granted. We do appreciate that our audience tonight is actually coming from all backgrounds. At the end of the day, I think for us writers, just like for humanitarian aid workers, there is no us versus them. There are only human beings. And we are connected beyond borders. Our stories are connected, our destinies are connected. I have been in England, in the UK for a very long time now, and this is my home. It became my home. And I feel very attached to this country. But since the earthquake struck, there hasn't been a moment that I have not thought about Turkey. And the reason why I mention this is because I think we don't forget our motherlands, you know? We carry them with us. The voices of our motherlands keep echoing in our minds. But perhaps more importantly, I think it's possible to love where you come from. It's possible to love your adopted country equally, and at the same time insist on being a citizen of humankind and a citizen of the world. I believe, like Walt Whitman said so eloquently, we each contain multitudes. The last testimonial that we want to share with you is actually very, very brief, because we don't know anything about her. We do not know her name, we don't know her surname, we don't know her age. The only thing we know about her is that she was wearing a green cardigan when they found her body. And so in order to honor her, you know, to respect her, they wrote this on her gravestone. It says, "The little girl wearing a green cardigan." And her story is not told yet. It's not written yet. Maybe one of the authors on the stage will write it someday. Maybe you will write it someday. But let's please keep her in our thoughts. Let's please keep all the survivors and victims of the earthquakes everywhere, anywhere in our thoughts. And rather than indifference, rather than numbness, and definitely rather than hatred, let's always choose love. I very much want to, of course, thank every member of the Choose Love family. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. And I want to please invite you to give a big round of applause for every author on the stage.